Hello and welcome to another episode of the Imperial Soldier. Today's episode, we are starting our Battleship tournament. So, this first episode, as I mentioned in the last video, will be the Yamato class battleship, going up against the Ohio class battleship. Now, if I do say the Iowa class battleship, I am mistaken. I only mean Ohio. So, I'm going to see if I can do this without making a lot of cuts. So anyways, let's get right into the comparison. So the first thing that we're going to talk about this ship comparison is the comparison of their main guns. Now, the main guns on the Yamato are the 460mm Type 94 main gun, whilst the main gun on the Ohio are the fictional 457mm Mark I guns. Now, if you're wondering what the lines are after the millimeter of the guns, that's the length of the barrel. Now, I give both ships the edge here because both ships do have a very good main gun armament in caliber and in barrel length. Next up, we have the secondary guns. Now, I've divided this category into two, primary secondary guns and dual-purpose secondary guns. These will be the primary secondary guns. For the secondary guns, the Yamato has 152mm third-year guns, whilst the Ohio has the 127mm Mark 16 guns. Now, both have the edge because one of them is a dual-purpose gun, so it does get the edge with its anti-air roll, but for purpose ship-built anti-ship secondary guns, that would have to go to the Yamato class. But again, I would say it's even on that regard because of the placement of these secondary guns. Next up, we're going to talk about the dual-purpose guns. Both of these have 127mm second dual-purpose guns, the Yamato's being the Type 89, whilst the Ohio's are again the Mark 16. Now, you see that I have given the edge to the American. That's because the 127mm on American battleships were proven to be some of, if not the most efficient anti-air guns of World War II. Compared to the Yamato anti-air guns, those are considered, the Japanese in general were considered to have some of the worst anti-air. But anyways, speaking of anti-air, let's get right into the anti-air guns. The Ohio has 40mm Bofors, and the Yamato has 25mm Type 96 triple-barreled 25mm guns, which is a lot of lead going in the air. But even though it's a lot of lead, it's not hitting its target. Now, in World of Warships, the Ohio has 76.2mm secondary, well, not secondary guns, but it's the secondary anti-air gun. I couldn't add this in the game because, number one, I kind of forgot, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, and number two, the ranges of these guns are so small that even at 5,000, 10,000, and 20,000 meters, it wouldn't make a difference. So instead of doing that, I added a couple more Bofors guns to make up the weight. Next up, we have the torpedoes, which we're going to skip because, I mean, really, come on. Torpedoes, none of these ships have torpedoes. Next up, we have the armor. Now, for the armor, the Yamato does have more of the edge here, which is belt armor and deck armor, being 558mm and 279mm. The Ohio, however, has the tower armor advantage with 452mm tower armor. But in general, the armor would go to the Yamato. Next up, we have the top speed. Now, both ships' top speed are so slow. The Yamato at 27 knots, the Ohio at 28. But since the Ohio is 1 knot larger and faster, I would have to give the Ohio the edge there. Now, finally, the weight. The Yamato has 97,200 tons, whilst the Ohio is 96,300 tons. Both ships have the edge here because both are very efficient ships. The Yamato with its turret placement, and the Ohio with its secondary guns. And whilst the Yamato has the armor advantage as well, the Ohio does, in fact, have a little bit of a speed advantage, but that can also be mitigated by the dual-purpose guns. So both ships are efficient for their weight. Now, next up is who do I think will win? Both ships are fairly even in this match, but due to the Japanese bad range finding, I do have to give the edge to the Ohio-class battleship. The rangefinder accuracy is good, and even though the turret placements are good on the Yamato, the secondary turret placements of the Ohio are better. And with that 1 knot speed, that does mean that any engine damage that happens, the Ohio can still maintain top speed advantage. Anyways, we're going to stop talking about the ship comparison and talk a little bit more about the ships themselves.
The Yamato class of battleship is a series of battleship that was actually designed in the 1930s. Now, the ships were ordered in 1937, launched in 1940, and commissioned in 1941. The commissioning of the Yamato was a week after the Pearl Harbor attacks. So, here's a little bit about these ships. There were 3 Yamato class of ships. I say Yamato class of ships because there were 2 battleships, the Yamato and the Musashi, and 1 aircraft carrier, the Shinano. The Shinano is actually a really interesting one because it is a pretty large battleship. It was also sunk by the submarine USS Archerfish in 1944. A sad fate. The Yamato class battleship was the largest and most heavily armed battleship that was ever commissioned, with its main guns being 460 millimeters. Now, I say the largest battleship ever commissioned because out of all the ships here, this is one of the only ships that was actually built in real life. All the other ships are either paper designs or wargaming designs. I'll tell you which one's a wargaming design soon enough. Now, the Yamato itself was the head of the combined fleet from 1941 to 1942. In late 1942, early 1943, the Musashi became head of the combined fleet, and the Yamato went back for retrofitting. The retrofits were that its secondary guns were switched from 4 155mm to 2 155mm, and since air power effectiveness was growing, they added a lot more anti-air, specifically the 25mm, which aren't that effective. But anyways, I'm going a little ahead of myself there. The Yamato class of battleship was under threat by U.S. submarines, specifically the Yamato and the Musashi, during the war, so they never saw a lot of combat. In the Battle of Leyte Gulf, the Musashi was sunk by airstrikes, the Shinano was torpedoed by the USS Archerfish, and then the Yamato was also sunk by airstrikes. Anyways, that's all for the Yamato. Let's go straight to the Ohio. Now, the Ohio class of battleship is not a pure wargaming design. This is actually a Montana class of battleship. The only difference is that its main guns are not the standard 406mm, but instead 457. In Wargaming's own words, quote, "Back in 1938, amid rumors about the creation of a ship with a caliber exceeding 406mm in Japan, there were projects of battleships with 457. One of them was relatively fast and had armament comprising of 6 guns and 3 twin-gun turrets. The twin turrets developed for this project could have been mounted on the unfinished Montana class of battleship." Now, if you're wondering what it means by the 3 turrets, that pretty much means that it was a design that's meant to be on the Iowa class of battleship. But there's nothing that I could find on the Iowa class of battleship that had 457mm guns. But besides that, I know that this is the Montana class because 1, it's quad barbettes, and the armament's pretty much the same. But there's not much to it, except for it's pretty much a Montana class. So, if you're wondering about what the Montana class is, the Montana class of battleship is a series of battleships that were designed by the U.S. Navy in 1939, but they never actually were built because carrier power was being more pursued because of the effectiveness of carriers. And yes, the ship was designed by the U.S. Navy. Anyways, that's it on both ships. Let us actually get into the battle to see which one will rule for this round. game to see who will win. No sides win this round. I'm doing an override. They both ran out of ammo, so let's just move on to 20,000 meters. Okay, so the Ohio won, and it didn't look like much of a challenge there. I'm gonna be honest. I fell asleep during this. It went pretty slow, so I apologize. This is just cut footage. So anyways, that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is gonna be one of the longer videos because both ships did not kill each other that fast, so that's pretty good. Anyways, next video will be the German battleship Prussian versus the Russian battleship Kremlin. So, again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, show your support however you'd like to, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.